Hello, welcome back to Docker presentation series. This is Satyadev. In the last presentation, we compared uh, VMs against containers, that is hardware virtualization against OS virtualization. Now, in this presentation, let's see the pros and cons of containers, advantages and limitations of containers. We already discussed some of the features. We are going to discuss a little bit in detail in the application perspective. Now, what are the advantages of using containers? Containers have many advantages over virtual machines due to the following reasons. Honestly, we cannot compare because those two are different purposes. But nowadays, containers are more popular because the problems that we had for VMs are different compared to the container problem. So yeah, I think that's the comparison. But to be honest, you cannot compare virtual machines against containers because they are different. They are created for two different purposes. Anyway, so advantage of containers are they are lightweight. We discussed because they don't have any operating system, faster startup, better resource utilization. Because they're small, they don't need a lot of memory. So I mean, whatever memory they require, they take from the operating system, right? So you don't need to specially specify, I want this much of memory for this container. It takes care of all that stuff. um, and if it doesn't need, you don't take from the host OS. Easier portability. You have a container in Windows, you can easily put it onto a Linux one. Whereas virtual machines, it's not possible. Operating system, changing the operating system, not possible. Yes, it is possible to take one VM on one operating system to another operating system of the same type, Windows to Windows, Linux to Linux. Yes, it is possible, but not and also hypervisor should be the same. So, but of course, Docker also kind of same, but yeah, the same thing. Easier portability. Um, Developer friendly. They are really most of the stuff that we do in Docker using configurations and Docker files and commands and stuff. They are more like developer kind of stuff. So it's easy to do development team as well as operation team. More like scripting and all that stuff we need to do. And they are really ideal for microservices. So what is the microservices? We will see in another presentation series. Details of microservices we will see in another presentation. But microservices are like nothing but web services that only cater to one feature of the application, one feature of the applications. So they are ideal because one microservice can be run as a one Docker. In the advent of cloud like cloud technologies, AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, microservices are very popular. At the same time, Docker are tied to microservices because a microservice is hosted in a Docker. Yeah, that's what it is. Simplified CI/CD. Yeah, it is really easy to do CI/CD and easier to scale. It is actually because the startup and shutdown times are very fast. For example, one Docker is down for some reasons. You can just spin another Docker immediately. That could be useful in a environment where you need to scale things faster. Whereas in VMs, it is not. It takes a lot of time. Right. So smaller footprint, yes, because they don't have much apart from the application and its DLLs, right? So have a broad ecosystem, could be used in multiple places. So that's pretty much what the advantages of containers. Now, what are the limitations? Yes, containers are the final panacea for everything. No, even though containers have many advantages for VMs, again, we can't compare, but whatever it is. So there are certain limitations that makes the use of VMs mandatory in certain cases. So VMs may be needed because containers are less secure. In a way, it's misleading. They don't have any big security installed. So containers don't have any special security thing or anything. They just use host. If host is vulnerable, they are also vulnerable, right? Whereas VMs, it's not like that. Even though host OS is vulnerable, the virtual machine is may not be vulnerable if you make strict security things in the virtual machine. Less granular resource isolation. So you don't have a fixed resources. Like you can't specify this much amount I want. It's like it's not very clear about the resource utilization when it comes to containers. when it comes to legacy and monolithic applications, Dockers won't succeed because they are huge, and they're not intended for that kind of purposes. Containers are intended for. I use Docker container in a synonymous way, but like I said earlier, container is the product and Docker is the brand, right? So like soap and Mysore sandal or whatever it is, right? So company, it's like that, right? So they are not suitable for legacy and monolithic applications. By default, they don't have mechanism for storing stuff in the container. VMs, yes, they do have. Even if you shut down VM, when you start again, it grabs the memory. In containers, you can do that. We can do that, but it's not straightforward. Honestly, Docker doesn't have any memory. It uses the host memory, and how it works, we'll see. Networking is a bit complex in the sense that it uses core network, even though you specify. As it is kind of new technology, there aren't many new tooling available, but I think it is towards the it's towards the maturement. So it's almost getting matured. So it's okay. I think we can ignore the 7.7. There are a good number of tools, but yeah, could have more. It's a relatively new technology compared to VMs. When it comes to high loads, that means you push a lot of stuff into the Dockers. They may perform little bit low when it compares to the VMs. So that's pretty much on the limitations of containers. Now, when to choose a container architecture, when to choose a VM. So, you have an application, you want to host it in a VM or in a container. Here is the table. Choose containers for microservices, cloud-native apps, stateless workloads. Whereas when you choose VMs for legacy, stateful, and monolithic applications. So if you have a monolithic application, legacy one, want to host, don't use Docker or something else. So use VMs. When rapid deployment, scalability, and resource efficiency is needed, use containers. When you need security, isolation, OS diversity, use VMs. In environment with consistent OS requirements, you can use Docker. For example, you know that you are using only Linux Dockers or like a Linux containers basically. You could go for Dockers containerization. Whereas you don't know, right? So one workload needing advanced networking storage, you can use hardware. So you have one network, and top of it, you're configuring a different kind of network in the virtual machine. You could do that, right? So that's what it is. So the underlying recommendations are run containers inside VMs to combine container efficiency with VM isolations. This is a good point. So you have a VM, but it can contain multiple containers. In this VM, you can have a container engine, and you can run containers, right? That's possible. Use VMs for critical workloads and container for scalable microservices. For a critical workload, yes, it has to be there. You can't afford to lose. Use VMs because they are going to be there. Crashing of VMs is very rare. Where you can do certain operations on Docker which will close a container or a Docker container. So then they are not really that great when it comes to reliability. So use VMs when it comes to critical workloads. Use Docker or containers for scalable microservices. So I think that's pretty much about pros, cons, and advices on when and how to use containers. We will see more on Docker in the next presentations. Thank you.
Like, share, comment, and subscribe VNR Digital Learning Resource YouTube channel.